for our community. And again, just wanted to give some information that we can provide and provide maybe some insight going forward on how the public can be of help. So we have followed up on numerous leads, and nothing points to anything criminal in nature at this time. Now let me clarify that, because sometimes people think if I say that we're not investigating this like a criminal matter. There's just investigations. We investigate everything with the same tools and tactics, whether it says criminal or not. A good example of this is an overdose. We investigate an overdose death the same way, regardless whether it was accidental or intentional. We investigate even an unattended death for somebody in a certain way. We investigate other cases with the same thing, because in many cases, the investigative tools are all the same. What we're seeking is information and evidence within that investigation to point us a certain direction. For a missing person, that's ultimately the goal of getting that information to point us to a certain direction to find Mr. Weathersby and complete that investigation in that regard. And so I think that's just a point of noting that we are putting effort and energy into this like we would any other investigation. Whether you want to attach criminal to it or not doesn't really matter to us. Our purpose is to find the truth and find the facts that are out there. We have searched and checked electronic platforms, physical searches of the area, and available videos to include private video as well. Now, tips are key on this. We're still getting tips over the weekend that have come in that have led us new directions on some spots we can check. And that's coming from the public, who is providing a tip of fact, right? And again, even as we work for other areas or jurisdictions where we think he may be or may have family or friends or anything like that, we're networking that out too, but also know that, again, while it receives a ton of attention in Sioux Falls, it may not receive the same attention in other communities. And that's why we have to follow up on different paths and tracks to make sure we're following with that. Working with the family throughout and the private investigator they have hired, and they've been cooperative throughout the process. We're opening shared communications. There's direct lines with our detectives who are working these cases. Tips are coming in, facts are coming in, and we're working through that. Again, there's things that need to be sifted through, because I think sometimes, and we'll get to that to the end, what the difference is between the public providing kind of rumor and innuendo as opposed to the facts that we have and the information that we're sharing with the family. This week, here's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on tips of value. A tip of value is not a theory. A tip of value is not a suggestion. A tip of value is, I know this or I see this, because I can tell you with very, very many cases that we've been able to solve, it's one person who actually knows the one or two things that we need that provides that puts us in the right direction. And I believe that person is within our community, or people are within our community who have the tips that we need to move this direction and get the resolution we're looking for, which is where is Mr. Weathersby. A couple other notes is that, and this is actually, I have to call this out, there's a gentleman that lives in the area of Russell and Kiwanis who has very similar physical descriptors. It is not him, okay? I give this gentleman a ton of credit for his being as gracious as he's been, because police have been sent to look for him numerous times. And again, we've even internally sent it out to our people. Hey, this is not him. Just FYI, you may get a call to this area that is saying this is the gentleman. So just, again, that's why I mean, like, we want to get these tips and get them in and have some understanding. And ultimately, I want to point this out because this is a very real case. Tyler has friends, family, and loved ones who care about him deeply. For some of the public, this has become internet sleuthing or real crime drama or entertainment. And so I say that because it's just important to think about some of these things and actions, that there's a family, loved ones, and friends who care very, very deeply. And obviously, as a police department, we're doing everything that we can do to try to find this. And like I said, back to that tip piece, but I just want to caution the public a little bit on that piece, right? That this is a very real situation, and we want to find resolution for Tyler and Tyler's family. I can take limited questions. I can't get too deep into it because there is some privacy concerns here. Again, for him and his family and a lot of the issues, we can't answer just everything you want to ask. So
I probably have a really bold question.
Sure.
It's It's probably the question of the day.
Yeah.
Do you guys suspect that he's alive? Do you know? I mean,
Oh,
I know that chances decrease, right, as time passes and it's been quiet.
So I get asked by everybody, even in the grocery store.
Yep.
Right. This is kind of the case that we have, is that this is the number one question that I receive. And I think we have to follow the facts and the evidence that are there. What I'm telling you is there's nothing criminal in nature at this time or anything of that. I can also tell you this, in a missing persons case, in a lot of investigations, speaking in generalities, financials and phone are key in solving a lot of these cases. And so when those aren't there, if people want to do certain things, if they want to go certain directions, there's obviously a lot of theories. We can't definitively, and it would be inappropriate of us to say what we think in that regard. But I believe there is a strong possibility that we continue doing what we're doing, looking for where we're at, that we're not necessarily going to point to a negative resolution, so to speak. So
you guys go into this assuming that he is alive and he just left?
Yeah, well, no.
That
so
hasn't changed?
So actually in investigations, we go into it assuming nothing.
Okay.
Right. So we know the information that we have, we know where it points us, we know everything that's there. And like I said, if we had a specific tip or a specific anything, we would put that out if we were sending people a certain direction or a certain way, right? In this situation, what we're saying is, again, the information, we have to look at every side of it. I go back to previous homicides that we've had, just because those investigations get a lot of attention. If we had listened to the public on a homicide a couple of years ago, the tips that we were getting were fully pointing the wrong direction, right? So we can't get caught up in one theory or one approach. We have to look at the whole broad approach and what facts are there to help guide our investigators. And they've proven, again, that if they get the right information or find the right break in a case, that they're very good at finding a resolution. But yeah, we assume nothing, one way or the other. We look at all evidence and let the investigation tell us where we need to go.
Could you review for us just exactly what we do know about the location of his identification, credit cards, phone? How much of that do you have, and how much can you presume is still with him?
Oh, sure. We have a good information that a lot of what he had was left behind, right? And so, again, we've covered in previous briefings that he was seen on cameras on that day, free and walking of his own accord, right? Which is a key fact in this, I think there. So in that regard, yeah, that's kind of that basis. And I think if you look at how technology aids in a lot of different things, we've gone through a lot of traffic cameras that we have, private videos, and just things that are out there. And that's what we know from that point. But again, if somebody chooses to leave some of that stuff behind or not use some of that stuff, that just kind of takes one piece of our investigative tools and makes it much, much more difficult. So,
can you tell us where his last known, factual location was?
We provided it in previous briefings, kind of up in that northwest part of town, off that camera that was seen. And I don't have it in front of me because I'm kind of covering the higher level stuff today. And again, even to our investigator standpoint, they are so deep into this case, and the different numbers of facts and information and theories that are there are pretty extensive. I would need a couple weeks to catch up on all those. So, yeah.
Why has it become what it has become?
I really think if we look at different cases, he was loved by many, known by many, respected by many. I just think that he has a lot of connections within the community. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that just raises the scrutiny or the visibility to it. I think we've seen in other cases around the country. And then you layer into that, and I'm not going to address it, but I will address it in this way, some of the rumor and innuendo that circles within social media and our internet. We keep to the case. That just layers more and more intrigue on. Every couple years there's one that gets that level. And this for Sioux Falls has become that case that has captured a lot of imagination a lot of attention, right? Just based off the facts that are there. And I think it's just one of those things that kind of continues to build upon itself. Now I want to harness all this energy and information in a positive light and say, what's the fact that we need to break this? What's the fact that somebody has or knows that can provide us this. And we've seen it with other investigations. Sometimes those don't come until weeks later because somebody remembers something or somebody finally decides to say, hey, I know this or this about this particular case. Yeah.
I
Go ahead,
just
John.
have a clarification. Are you looking for the 1 to 2 people that might have the tip of value? Do you feel like you know who those people are?
No.
Or you don't?
No.
Okay.
Like I said, there's always, and again, I'm being pretty general in this term, but also looking back to some of our other investigations that have been really tough for us. There's usually just somebody who knows something, right? And again, I know even some of the other homicides that we're working right now, I know there's facts and pieces that people haven't provided that they have. And so I think this is a public appeal. If there is somebody who knows something that they, for whatever reason, didn't want to share, I think I want to go back to this gentleman's family and loved ones. Like, we really want to find that resolution for them. And again, I think that's the appeal, is kind of to say that. And any other questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask about any other of the unsolved stuff you have, like Dunham Park. Do you
Yeah.
have any other updates on Dunham
So,
Park or any of the other?
Again,
other homicides?
a lot of questions. I think we've provided some updates on Dunham Park. And here's the other thing with investigations, especially like the Dunham Park or other incidents, is that we have information. Like, it is also reasonable that we have to hold on to some of that for investigative purposes. And I think it's important to remember that sometimes the public's desire for details doesn't override the fact that we have a job to do, and to compromise that by providing information that's inappropriate could jeopardize the entire investigation. And so that's where, again, I think sometimes we'll be like, well, people are like, oh yeah, certainly the cops don't know anything or they're not telling us anything. There are certain pieces that we just have to withhold for investigative things. Very similar to the case of a homicide a couple years ago when the entire public was saying that's the guy that did it. And we knew very well that wasn't the guy that did it, right? So if we even give information that's inappropriate or leading the public in the wrong direction, so we very intentionally have to give what we can give at certain points. And again, ultimately, with a lot of those cases, the Dunham Park case or other cases we've worked, when court paperwork gets filed, as journalists, there's a lot of information in there, right? Which was probably never covered at a press briefing because that was withheld to build what we needed to build within the investigation.
And I don't know if this falls into all other investigations,
Yeah.
but since it's fresh,
Yeah,
what can you tell us about the investigation at 12th in Cleveland from over the weekend?
I believe Sam will be covering
Okay.
that. Yep. Again, I'm here, and again, we decided we had a couple things we were working on through the weekend. And on Friday, I told Sam, my intention is to be here on Monday to talk about the Weathersby case because I don't want to let it go away either, right? I want to elevate it into the media standpoint. I think you've been very responsive in giving this case the attention that it needs, right? And also focusing on what we need to focus on. And I'm just asking you to do the same, that we keep the word out, keep people focused, because we are pretty fickle as a society right now. Sometimes stories only last for about 12 to 24 hours. So we need engagement on the story in a positive way that gets those tips going where we need to be. So,
Is there anything the public can do other than searches and tips
Yep.
to help?
and so again, keep your eyes open. Again, it's really interesting because, and again, as we develop more information, like we've done drone flights, we've flown our aerial assets over certain areas. But if we get another tip, again, we have resources that we can draw from. And so from an active public, again, I know the families organized a lot of their own searches, and like for us to kind of shift assets or do something of scale, we need that singular piece of information that can send us that direction. If you do just a little bit of math on how fast the human body can walk per hour, and then take that and create a search radius, you've now created quite the big search radius that would be almost very, very impossible to methodically comb over. And that's where, if we get the right piece of information and we have a spot where we can go, it becomes the needle in the haystack analogy becomes a much smaller haystack, so to speak. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll start with the 12th in Cleveland. That's one of the aggravated assaults. Oops. This was... Oops. So it was yesterday evening, Sunday evening, about 5:30 is when we were called. There's kind of in that area a little bit east of there, there's kind of a group of trees. And we had a bunch of people that were in that wooded area drinking. At some point, there was a disagreement between two people. Our suspect ended up beating up the victim pretty substantially. He was punching him and then kicking him several times. The injuries are life-threatening. Once it was called in, he was taken to the hospital immediately. I don't have an update on his condition at this point. We were able to track the suspect was. The suspect was found. There, I'm getting that pulled up. Aggravated assault, robbery, and then kidnapping. It was also placed on a parole hold as well. And I can give you his name if you want it. Last is Swallow, Swallow. First is Robin, Robin. Middle is Joseph, Joseph. And he's 32. The victim is 64. Robin lists him as a transient from Pine Ridge, and the victim's from Sioux Falls.
Can you explain how the kidnapping charge comes into play?
No. I didn't see anything on the initial one, the kidnapping, so I'll have to do some. Okay. Other aggravated assaults, most of those are domestics. Burglaries, nothing big out of those. We didn't have any arrests. Nothing big out of the disorderlies. A whole bunch of reports. For pretty much everything else. The suspicious vehicle, that was a report created in error, so I don't have any details on that. The weapons violation, this was tied into the suspicious person that was, there's a press release, and then also the social media post was put out. Excuse me. So this was Saturday morning, about 10 a.m. There was a fundraiser at Lincoln High School, and they had a pancake feed that was taking place. And so we had some students that were out by the sidewalk. They saw a vehicle drive by, and one of them noticed that the guy driving the car had a handgun on his lap. This same person ended up going into the school, had some pancakes, and then left. Gun with him. It was concealed in his waistband when he was inside the school. He didn't show it to anybody, didn't threaten anybody with it. He left. We were able to work with the school district, utilize their surveillance video. We got that information put out, and that led to some tips, and then we were able to identify the suspect. So he was arrested for one count of having a weapon on school grounds. That's a misdemeanor. Like I said, there was no threats with that. He didn't give any, not that I could go into it, but really no explanation of why he had that gun with him.
What's your guys' policy when you like report something like of that nature? Do you need to coordinate with the school district, or like how does that work when you?
We work closely with the school district. There's a lot of different. We got a close relationship with them. We've got school resources. Anytime something happens like this, we're going to work closely with the school district, and I think the chief wants to weigh in on that.
Yeah, just because we spent a lot of time last week talking about it. So the evolution of that is, again, if you saw some of the previous coverage, we're in constant communication. Something like this happens, and we are working back and forth, determining course, pre-planned responses on how we work through issues. Again, a lot of cell phone calls on a weekend to make sure we get that going. So,
Where do you get the gun?
from a friend. It was not stolen, if that's where you're
He
going.
didn't
with
own
it.
it.
He did not own it. No, it was a friend that had lent it to him.
He's a juvenile, right?
No,
No.
Oh,
he's 18.
Yeah. So there was a lot of, again, a lot of speculation on different things about, like we have a set of rules that we follow, right? So we're going to determine in certain circumstances, again, that that's not a student before we information, but there are situations, I think you saw previous week, where we released information because we had a court order that allowed us to do that as a juvenile. So to stay consistent to the rules that the courts have given us in releasing that information. So again, we can quickly work through some things, determine where we're going, and have that so we can send that out. But just a busy section. So again, we're hiring. We could always use more officers. Use this opportunity to raise the call, answer your community, so we can fill some of our unfilled positions. Again, we're just busy because we're a big city. Yeah.
Can
Yep.
you explain to me how you guys totally eliminate the possibility of a threat in a situation like that?
Oh.
Because I think it's one thing for you guys to say, oh, no threat, but then the public is
Sure.
like, oh, we're just supposed to take the word for it.
Well, yeah, so
You know?
we again have to go back to what evidence is there and what's fast. And also now keep in mind that this individual has been charged with a crime and has a right to go to court to defend himself, right? Or provide whatever explanation is there for that. So again, we have to take our words very cautiously, or person said X, Y, or Z, then we would be able to say that, right? But these ultimately have to play out in court. And again, I can tell you this, the regularity, Mr. Lally would also comment this too, of people who are just legally carrying guns, that they educate fully. With constitutional carry, there are rights that are afforded within South Dakota through state statute. However, those rights do not include everywhere and anywhere. There are still restrictions on where firearms can be. I think we can all agree schools are an important. I think
Did you say his name, Sam?
No, I didn't.
Sam's got the details.
Okay.
I just got the.
His last name is Linderman, Linderman. First is Philip, Phillip. Middle is Jonathan, Johnathon, and he's 18 from Sioux Falls.
but it was a handgun.
It was a handgun,
Not
right?
millimeter.
No, I don't know. It was a handgun, I know that. The other weapons violation were basically reports. One of them, somebody saw a person driving with a handgun. Don't have any specific victims in that. Another one was some gunshots that were in a parking lot. And the last was an accidental discharge. Somebody was trying to clean their gun and it went off inside an apartment complex.
Where and when was that parking lot discharged?
That was Friday night at 34th Street and Louise Avenue. It was about 10:50 p.m. That's all I have on the log.
Are you closer to an arrest on Wednesday's kidnapping?
We made an arrest already.
Okay.
There was a warrant that was, I think there was that one, there was a warrant that was issued, so one person's been arrested. They're still investigating that, still working yet.
Do you know anything more about the relationship? In this press release, you said that we're still investigating the relationship between the two. Do you know anything more about that?
Which one?
Kidnapping.
The kidnapping? No, I don't know that we have specific details. I know the detective has talked to the victim and learned some more information, but we're still trying to piece everything together.
Can you give us an indication whether this is a random kidnapping or, I mean, that's the,
The big, yeah. things seem to be pointing towards that it's not a random kidnapping. Some of the information that we have learned, so initially the victims said that they were walking along the street and then this vehicle stopped. That was not quite accurate. So we've learned other information that she was at the apartment complex when it happened, so we're still working on trying to figure all that stuff out. So the specific relationship, I don't know that we can say that. I can't give you all the information that we've learned so far. We're still working on trying to figure out that connection, but she wasn't just walking along the street and snatched off the street like it was initially reported. Anything else?
Well, I think the court documents list that there's like 2 people listed on the court documents, only 1 was arrested. That's kind of what I was asking about too.
And I don't remember. I'll have to do some checking into that. I know the one person was arrested. I can't remember on that second one. I'll have to do some digging onto that. I can get back to you and let you know.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, thanks.